Speaker John Bercow is facing mounting criticism for suggesting he'll prevent President Trump addressing Parliament during his state visit later this year. Mr Bercow, who's one of 3 parliamentary officials who can approve such an event, said opposition to sexism and racism and support for equality were hugely important. But critics say he should have stuck to the tradition of neutrality, with one senior Conservative describing his intervention as utterly outrageous. Here's our political correspondent, Eleanor Garnier.
It's an honour that's bestowed on popes and presidents. A speech to both houses of Parliament in the splendour of Westminster Hall was part of the itinerary for these dignitaries when they visited Britain. But the same invite may not be coming President Trump's way. In an astonishing intervention, the Commons Speaker said recent decisions by the President had made him uneasy about issuing an invitation.
I feel very strongly that our opposition to racism and to sexism and our support for equality before the law and an independent judiciary are hugely important considerations in the House of Commons.
Rare applause from SNP and Labour MPs who've been highly critical of the American president. And that anger brought anti-Trump demonstrations to the Prime Minister's door after she invited him on a state visit later this year.
For us to roll out the red carpet at Buckingham Palace, or indeed to invite him here to speak to us in a grand occasion of both houses, sends out all the wrong messages. That's why Mr Speaker Bercow has called it right today.
The Speaker of the Commons is a powerful figure who has a say in who addresses MPs. He's independent of party politics and is supposed to represent the whole House. It's clear that some are unhappy with his outburst.
Generally, the Speaker, who's meant to referee all of this, should keep himself above that. So I think that's to be regretted. But it is a symptom of the controversy around this visit.
That's very disappointing because if ever in recent years been a more pro-British President of the United States, is Donald Trump.
I invite you, Mr President, to address us.
And Tory MPs are pointing out that he has in the past welcomed leaders to Parliament whose values Britain doesn't always share. Eleanor Garnier, BBC News.
Let's go to our assistant political editor, Norman Smith in Westminster. Well, Norman, a very divided reaction to what he said. What is the latest from there in Westminster?
Well, there is no disguising the real anger, predominantly on the Conservative benches at Speaker Bercow's comments, a view that he has exceeded his authority, he has adopted a partisan approach, and one former cabinet minister telling me that he no longer commands the confidence of Parliament. The question is what happens now. This former cabinet minister was mulling over whether he should go into the chamber and challenge the Speaker with a point of order, but he wasn't sure, slightly concerned about what that might do in terms of whether he would be called in future. And I think there is a quandary that many MPs are wondering, what do they do? There have been suggestions, maybe there could be a motion of no confidence. So far that hasn't materialised, but earlier the Conservative MP Nadine Dorries was pretty clear. She thought Speaker Bercow's position was now in jeopardy.
When he loses the support for what was a very partisan moment, I think his position will become more and more in jeopardy. And it all depends on how people out there react. This isn't about this place anymore. It's about the people and what the people want. And I think if people make enough of a stink out there, then I think his position could be in jeopardy.
So what happens now? Well, I'm joined by the Conservative MP Andrew Bridgen, who's frequently criticised the Speaker, and that is the question, what happens now?
Well, that's up to the House of Commons. At the end of the day, I think there is anger and disappointment at the Speaker's actions yesterday. It was clearly premeditated and pre-planned, so there's a lot of politics going on here. At the end of the day, the Speaker has addressed an issue which has not been raised. There's no itinerary timetable for the Trump state visit, and colleagues are clearly very disappointed. As we leave the European Union, our relationship with the United States, the most powerful country in the world, one of our staunchest allies and who we rely on for the defence of Western Europe, is more important than any time, and I think Speaker Bercow has put that at jeopardy. And I would say that I think there are some similarities between the position of the office of President of the United States and Speaker of the House of Commons, in that individuals might might not like the person who holds that office, they might not approve of the way they conduct themselves, but I think we do have to give the office the respect it deserves.
Will there be a motion of no confidence put down in Speaker Bercow?
I think that probably colleagues will be canvassing to see if there's support for that. At the end of the day, questions over his conduct, I think, are numerous. At the end of the day, he's someone who thinks that Keith Vaz is a fit and proper person to be in the House of Commons.
What is your own inclination? Do you think he should face a confidence vote?
It was clear yesterday evening that there was a lot of dissatisfaction amongst colleagues, outrage even, that he'd overstepped the mark and compromised the neutrality of the chair, which I think is key to the office.
Well, if he's compromised the neutrality and suggestions he no longer has the confidence of the entire House, how can he continue?
Well, that is a question for the House, and one has to ask why. Undoubtedly, the Speaker planned all of this. Why is he doing it? Is he planning to resign in a cloud of glory and go forth as a great reforming Speaker? Or is he looking to renege on his commitment for only 9 years in office, which would run out next year? And perhaps, as Alex Salmond's his cheerleader, 4 more years for John Bercow in the chair.
Isn't the difficulty, though, while plenty of MPs are willing to criticise Speaker Bercow privately, in public, there is a natural reluctance to challenge him because they may never get called in the chamber again?
Yes, I mean, there's no doubt the Speaker has great powers of patronage of who he calls in the chamber, and if you're not on his list of friends and supporters, he has the ability to ignore you in the chamber and not call you, unless you're on the order paper, of course.
What happens if the Speaker in the Lords, who we're going to hear from this afternoon, the former Tory MP Norman Fowler, takes a different view and suggests that maybe Donald Trump would be welcome to make an address in the House of Lords?
Well, I hope he does, and quite honestly, that would be very embarrassing for the Speaker, and there is apparently a triumvirate. It's the Lord High Chamberlain would be the third party, and if it were democratically voted upon and it was 2-1, that would put the Speaker in a very difficult position. And I honestly believe if it were a free vote of the whole of the House of Commons, I hope that the Commons would vote to allow the President of the United States to address both houses, and let those members who don't want to meet the President of the United States for whatever reason, they don't have to be present.
Okay, Andrew Bridgen, thanks very much for your time. Joanna, just let you know, when the Speaker came through on the Speaker's procession a short time ago, I have to say he was looking supremely relaxed. He did not look like a man feeling the pressure. He was waving to some of the school children lined up along the route. So we'll see how he copes if MPs do get up and start to question his judgment.
And just before we let you go, just another question on events there in the Commons. Labour's shadow cabinet deciding that the next Brexit bill will be a 3-line whip vote for the Labour Party.
Yeah, this is significant. So Labour have put down a whole barrage of amendments to the Brexit bill. Jeremy Corbyn, by telling his MPs they must back the bill regardless of what happens to their amendments, means the bill will certainly go through, but it also signals to Labour folk that Jeremy Corbyn wants his party to back Brexit come what may. And on the contentious issue of further possible resignations from the shadow cabinet, I was speaking to one member of the shadow cabinet and he said they were all united behind that policy, which suggests figures like Diane Abbott, who wasn't in the chamber last time this was voted on, this time will back Mr Corbyn.
Thank you very much, Norman.